Namaste and good evening to one and all. Welcome to Leaders Connect 360's episode LC0161. Leaders Connect 360 is CSR initiative by Bija Training and organized by the Mass Leadership. My name is Janani and I am a BCom graduate. Leaders Connect 360 is started with a specific objective of inviting 1,000 plus leaders and create a million leaders. It is an online hub where every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. we learn from top management leaders on Zoom Live. And once in quarter in each city, we have an offline networking meet to network, support, and grow with the leaders. That's when we call it Leaders Create More Leaders. Currently, all are muted, and we will be giving you an opportunity to speak to our guest, Mr. Aman Sahota, Chief Executive Officer, Select Logistics Solutions, Stafford, United States, and panel discussion leader, Ms. Alagu Lakshmanan, NLP Life Coach, founder, ALisWELL. Before you are unmuted, let me share that we are currently live on LinkedIn and this episode LC0161 is being recorded. First-time visitors may click on the WhatsApp, FB, and LinkedIn link on the chat box to get updated by joining us in creating more leaders. All in the house are requested to turn on your videos, which will help in making the episode highly interactive. So, are we all ready to interact with our guest and panel discussion leader? Then share a thumbs up or smiley emoji in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you. Before the introduction of the guest, let me also introduce Ms. Rashmi Jaswal, founder, Research I, will interact with our guest along with the panel discussion leader, Ms. Alagu Lakshmanan. I shall welcome you all. Over to you, Ms. Rashmi.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's how John Oliver introduces his show. Last week tonight, he bangs his hands like that. That's something that I cannot do at present. So I'm Rashmi and welcome Mr. Aman Sahota and welcome Alagu ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you on our show, sir. We're going to talk about field heard empowerment. Before that, we'll have Arul playing the video, introductory video. Thank you, Arul. Thank you so much for the lovely video. As always, Arul did a great job out of it. We welcome Aman sir and we welcome Alagu ma'am as well. So over to you guys. Thank you.
Hey guys, well, good morning on my side and good evening to you
Good evening
guys.
from our side.
In case anybody's here from US, but it's really an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I've dedicated a majority of portion of my career, understanding, developing, and trying to figure out what leadership really stands for. And coming to events like these and seeing people like yourself doing this, it truly means a lot, and that's one of this to spread the message was one of the reasons I started the Leadership Blueprint, um, you know, so that people can really understand what is the essence of leadership and what are we lacking today and how we can get back on track, because the ultimate goal of good leadership is to foster development of future leaders, right? And I think that is very critical. So thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Aman. And once again, welcome. Thank you, Rajmi. Thank you, Arul, for the introduction. So since I was invited for the panel discussion, and when I saw the topic, feel heard empowerment, it was like, amazing, so profound. So I would like to start with a question saying, hearing and feeling heard, are they two different from your side? I would like to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll keep it short because we are on time limit. I mean, it's a very broad subject to elaborate on, but think of it this way. How many times have we sat across people that maybe in our professional life, in our personal life, and we get up from the conversation and we doubt, did this person really understand me? Did this person really understand the message? Do they even get what I am trying to say? Then I started really understanding, and as I did a lot of one-on-one sitting with people and in the house talking to people, personal life, that what's really missing is just by you sitting there and listening to them for an hour does not mean they will get up from that table or the chair and think, wow, this person really understands me, right? Because what is it to really feel like you've been heard is you knowing that the other person understood you, right? So there is a big difference than just sitting there and, you know, the other person thinking, did they understand me? Versus when the conversation is over, the person you're talking to, them saying, wow, they really understand me, right? There's a big difference in that. So I think there's a major difference, and that's where good leadership shines.
Exact. Yeah, I wanted this from your mouth so that it creates more impact. Because just we generally, there is a saying like, we listen to replay and we don't listen to understand.
Yeah, that is I mean, that's critical, and
Yeah.
I see that a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of people posting and talking about it. And, that's the understanding of what does that really mean? There's one thing to say, well, listen, you have to listen to understand rather than reply. But number one, how do you do that? What does that mean? And how does the other person interpret what you're trying to communicate, right? So it's like going deeper into the subject and understanding it. Look at it this way. How often do you ask somebody, hey, how are you feeling today? And they reply, well, I'm feeling good.
Good. Yeah.
It's what I've understood was 7% of what verbally we say is what we really mean. Just 7%, right? 55% is body language and 38% is tone. So when you ask somebody and they say, well, how do you feel? Well, I feel okay. They're not really okay, right? So
Correct.
it's understanding that is very crucial.
Very true. So I think you're the right person for this question. How can organizations foster a culture where employees feel heard and valued in their own roles?
Well, in a larger scale, you have to feel it this way. None of us would like to go to work if we don't feel safe and be happy there, right? So I think true essence, if you know, unlayer if you take an onion and you start peeling it out,
Yeah.
what is the core of it? I truly believe it's making people feel safe, right? I think safety is very, very important. And if people are feeling safe, then yes, it is possible, right? So I think it's the essence of that. Can we make sure people around us feel safe? And if people around us are not feeling safe, then there is a problem. And I think true essence, how do you make sure that people in an organization, how do you build a culture where people feel heard and value, well, listen to them. When you sit and talk to them, try to understand where they're coming from. And big picture is really leading with empathy, right? Easy word to say, very tough to understand. And we'll go in more detail into this. Part of leading with empathy is making sure you understand how does the other person feels, right? If an organization can think of that, and how do we communicate, talk, develop, do everything the way we do is keeping people we work with, people that work for us in mind. That's the only true way to make people feel heard and valued.
Awesome. So you also relate feeling safe equal to feeling heard. Like only when
Yes.
they are heard, they are safe. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. When they feel safe, they will feel. And again, it's listening, making sure and any conversation as a leader, an organization is basically a group of leaders. That's an organization, right? Every interaction, the person needs to feel that, hey, they're hearing me, they're understanding where I'm coming from. And to do that, you have to inevitably create an environment where people
Yeah.
come, they're happy and they're safe, right? And if they're not safe, they will not feel
They will
heard. They
not
will
they will
feel
not
bad.
open out. Yeah. They'll
Yes,
not.
they will not open up.
Yeah. So what could be some effective strategies, communication strategies leaders can use to ensure the team members are heard and their voices are acknowledged?
Now I would like to introduce this or talk a little bit about leading with empathy, right? Three traits of a leader that does that. Number one is emotional intelligence, all right? And I think that is somewhat an underrated skill, so to speak. And I see a lot of that is coming out now. A lot of people have started talking about it. I think that is the crucial thing in the subject is having, emotional intelligence to understand how does anybody and everybody in the organization like to communicate. One of the things that I do whenever I meet somebody new that I'm working with or they're working for me or I'm working for them, either way, is to make sure I ask them this question. Hey, how do you like communicating, right? Sometimes you go to an organization and there's a huge generational gap, right? There's a lot of senior people, a lot of junior people, different generations. It's really understanding and asking them, well, what is your mode of communication? How do you feel you will be heard the most? I think there is no one size fit for all, other than really understanding the people you're working with and what makes them feel heard, right? Look, some people, they want to be one-on-ones. They need that one-on-one time with their manager. Some people via email, some people via phone. So I think that is very crucial in day-to-day organization to understand that.
So once you understand that, then you can make it more effective when you come.
Yeah, you can make it more effective because you can say, well, the best way to make people feel heard and valued is sit and have one-on-ones, right? Yes, I truly agree with that. I think that is very important. But I also feel that what happens when that one-on-one is done, that hour is over, that 30 minutes is gone. Now you have another 23 hours in the day. How are you going to make them feel valued and heard then, right? So it's great to ask this question. Hey, what like how do you like communicating? What is important to you when it comes to communication? And I think as a leader, again, being able to adapt to that, to show high, emotional intelligence is very critical.
Also, it has different languages, right? Like few people are visual, few people are kinesthetic. So all that matters a lot here.
A lot, yeah. And that's how you can truly build trust in the team.
Definitely, yeah. So, is there any real life situation which you came across? Can you give that as an example where feeling heard led to empowerment and positive outcomes? Like there was a transformation in the workplace as such.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of somebody that, and I won't take names, but there was a particular very smart young lady that I was working with, and she did not speak English. In here in US, English and then Spanish is another language, and she had trouble speaking English. But at that time I had become a field leader for a company I was working for, but I could see the desire because every time I went to the restaurant, I saw that she's engaged and the team really loves her, but she's in that shell of, I'm in the shell. So one day when I took over the area, and I sat with her and I said, hey, I really see the impact you're making on your team. Why aren't you talking in meetings? Why aren't you sharing these experiences? What is the issue? And she said, well, I could see the language barrier. And she said, I have this language barrier. And I was like, I understand that, but to overcome that, you have to communicate, right? And I worked with her for about a year, continued working with her. She started improving her skills, but more importantly, every time we would have meetings, I would encourage her to talk, trying to really help her get out of this environment that she had created in her own head, that she's only going to do well in that particular store or restaurant that she was working in. The impact of that is she became a field leader herself. She developed a lot of people and impacted a lot of people positively. And, that same challenge that she saw that was holding her back was the same things that in future affected her to become a great leader until day to day.
Awesome. So you gave the safe space for her to, open out
Yeah.
and see barrier. Yeah.
Correct. And I think that's important because ultimately, if you really look at, and you are an executive CEO, you're a manager, it's your team that are ultimately interacting with customers, right? And it's your teams that are ultimately developing future leaders. So sometimes, sometimes it's just sitting down and asking them, what's going on? Like, clearly I see the potential in you, because a good leader sees potential in people before they see it in themselves. You know, I've seen that over and over and over with great mentors that I've had, that even when I was up and coming, many times I just didn't see it. And they would push me, hey, you have to, well, I don't think I can do this. And so I think that was a great learning experience in my journey, that you have to have that vision where you go into the future, you see the future, and you come back, and then you help people get there, right? I think that is very important.
So when we say hearing or feeling heard, active listening is very important, very crucial for that. And what role, according to you, active listening plays in empowerment of individuals and employees overall?
Yeah, look at empowerment, the word empowerment. What does it truly means? It means creating encouraging circumstances where everybody feels valued, heard, and they can really dedicate their life to a purpose, right? And to get to that place where everybody feels, they have the right to, or they have the right to make impact, and it's their responsibility to make impact. Ultimately, to get to that place, they have to know that as a leader, you want the best for them, right? To get to that point, and it's like a broken record. I keep saying this, and people are like, well, you talk about the same thing. Well, I don't know what else to talk about, because anything you want to achieve, you have to make sure that your team understands the following. You want the best for them. You're going to fight for them. You want to develop them. You work for them, right? To get to that point, you have to build trust. Because if you don't have trust, you cannot make people feel heard. And,
Definitely.
that is very, very important, that that trust is there, because every time you interact, if there is trust, they will say, oh, well, my leader understands me. Really, it's the understanding is what we said. Hey, I feel heard. Is you understand me, right? So I think that's very critical.
And your the example which you had mentioned here really, because of the active listening, and she opened up to you with the trust in you, and then uh,
Yeah.
you empowered her literally, like she became the
Right.
leader. So
Yeah,
awesome.
and it's very hard to listen actively. It's a very hard skill to develop. I still struggle with it, quite honestly. It's, because we live in a society where we always have to prove a point. We always have to show how much we know about a particular subject or a topic. And, I still struggle with it sometimes. It's very hard to just sit and say, yeah, well, how did that make you feel? Well, what's next? It's a hard skill to develop. So, when I teach leadership, I always tell people, and, I had an incident where I was meeting with this group of people that are trying to get into a franchise world, and then in the restaurant industry. And then, I met somebody, and they said, well, how, we are struggling in this certain area, and how do we help people become better leader? What's the one skill you would recommend we start teaching? And I looked at the person, I said, They just need to learn how to listen. And the guy tells me, well, no, we all do a good job at that. I was like, no, and the reason how I knew that, because the results didn't show that. When I met with the team, I met with people, there was clearly a gap between what leadership thinks is happening, what the team thinks is happening. And that gap is, are you listening? Right? Because you sit down with people and tell them, hey, how can we make this better? People have great ideas. They want to share ideas, but can you get them out of that that doubt? Hey, if I say anything, will it matter? Can you make them feel safe? Right? So active listening is a very hard skill. It's very hard to develop, but once you can get to a certain point, I think that's when you start building empowerment, the true essence of leadership in that.
And being vigilant and observing the person, body language. More
Body
than
language,
the spoken words, it's the body language that speaks a lot.
54% or 55%, so it's very
Listen, yeah.
important. Yeah, it's very, when I do one-on-ones, and I've done, countless one-on-ones with people, I take notes, I look at people, what are they really saying, right? It's not what they're telling me. What are they really saying? Their tone, right? Their words, how are they moving their hands? How are they sitting? I think as leaders, and as I develop leader, I talk a lot about this, people that try to educate yourself, self-educate even, a little bit on body language, a little bit on tone, because they are very, very critical. Because think of this, as a leader, you don't have the opportunity to meet everybody all the time. Let's say if you're a multi-unit leader, you're a CEO, when you're on that phone and you're talking to somebody, if you've developed the skill of understanding tone, right? How do people interact? What is the tone really
matters,
telling me? 38% of conversation, you have the opportunity to touch more lives without meeting each and every one of them.
Like how in NLP we keep repeatedly saying, you have to calibrate the person, entire body language, everything. So when you talk about feeling heard, and all this belongs to, is more human, to do with human touch. But still, we are in the world of technology. So how can technology help in leveraging this feeling, enhance the feeling of being heard? And how can we empower? Like you said, over phone, we are almost, it's become global village, and we are online always. Like you're sitting in US and we are here in India, we're talking to each other. So how does technology can help, in empowering people through feeling heard?
Correct. It depends on the scenario and the situation. For example, let's see if I manage a team, right? And I get to see them, I get to talk to them. It's a different scenario. Once you build that trust between each other, then we can interact via email. Because every time I send an email, I've built this environment where the team feels it's okay to question it. It's okay to give feedback, right? Now, in an environment where I don't get to meet the person, for example, we are here over Zoom talking to each other, and maybe we don't get to meet each other, but we still have to, and I have to lead a team, or a leader has to lead that team. The core of that is still trust, right? That trust needs to be built, right? You have to build an environment where you say, okay, well, he might be 5,000 miles away, but he wants the best for me, right? Unfortunately, and fortunately, if you really look at it, technology has helped us communicate,
Definitely.
quicker, right? Has it really helped us communicate more efficiently? I have seen in, situations where people will, you've met somebody, you became a part of the team, and you're communicating solely via text message with your teammates, right? So I think it's very important to find that balance, because ultimately building an empowered team, there is a human touch to that, right? And leading with empathy, and the three main traits is, being authentic, active listening, very, very important part. It's very important to be authentic. It's very important to do that, and it's very hard to do that over a text message and understand somebody. Active listening and emotional intelligence, right? To lead with empathy, there has to be some sort of an interaction to build that environment of safety. So Yes, technology has helped. Yes, I think if you do your due diligence and you get to know the person initially, technology can be a big factor in today's world of leading an excellent team. But if you're going to skip the work that needs to be done to get to that, you're not going to be an effective leader. There's no way out of that.
And especially when it's through text, it is like how it is read. Like we
Yeah.
might have, communicated in a different way, but when it is read, it depends on their mood and how they
Their
read it.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's not what we say, it's how we say it. Right.
exactly.
That's very critical. And as diligent as you can be saying the way that it should be said. That's why I've always thought of this. One of the things I've always done is when I had a group of people I was leading, I put them all in a text message and we communicated. Right, my philosophy always is there is no title. We all working as a team. We just have a different role to do. Right, you have a different role, I have a different role. And what I constantly did was, in any organization I worked, I created a group message where everybody was in group, and important updates, anything great, we messaged in the group,
Yeah.
right? And everybody interacted. But to get to that level, there might be 10 people and one person might say, hey, I had this difficulty in one of my stores today or one of my departments today. How are you guys handling that? And it's great to see when you build a safe environment, people saying, oh, I went through that, connect with me, this is what we did, and this is what happened. But to get to that point, you have to build a team
Work
with this.
towards it. Yeah.
Yes, once that happened, because if you do it too early and you say, and I met a team today and there's 10 people and I say, hey guys, let's get on a group, help each other. Now you're
Yeah.
chasing them, right? Because you haven't done your work to build an environment where they feel that their voice is valued. When you feel your voice is valued, you will speak up, right? And that happens by you making them feel safe, making them feel heard, and building a culture of empowerment, right? So do the work, and then technology is wonderful. Don't do the work, the technology is disastrous in leadership.
True, true. Like you said, like the authenticity is very important. Like you cannot put up anything. You have to be authentic when you do.
That is very true.
Especially in a group, the transparency is there, so people are more safe and they know they can
Yeah,
talk. Yeah.
correct. And really what does being authentic means is, we don't have to put a mask when we talk to somebody, right? Look, we all have to, society requires us to act, be in a certain way, certain things are acceptable. Yes, there's more liberty nowadays, but at the end of the day, when you're a leader, you're in charge of people's lives, right? So yes, you have to understand, that you have to be a certain person, but truly who you are inside, that is
Mhm.
very hard to change. In leadership, all you're trying to do is making everybody understand you can be you, right? We all have to get to a certain goal. Maybe you have a little bit of a different way to get there. Just be you. And when you make people feel heard, they can be themselves. That's when they start making impact, right? That's when they change their life and countless other lives. And it's very cheesy to say this, but it is really true, because I am a good example. When I became a leader, I was terrible, right? And I'm not saying I've achieved anything amazing in leadership. I'm still working towards, a lot of things that I lack as a leader, and I see it, right? But when I became a leader, I was terrible. People didn't like me and I didn't know what I was doing. Thanks to a lot of people that came across along in my life that, hey, do this better, do
Yeah.
this better. And then I evaluate, well, why did I listen to them to begin with? Well, because I truly felt they want the best for me, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is very important, that we understand each this really important skill, that be authentic, and teach your team how to do that. That's a very important trait, to lead with empathy. You can't lead with empathy if you're not you, right? So I think that's very important.
Very true. Yeah. That was awesome. So I think, Rashmi, you have anything else to ask, Aman?
No, nothing from my side.
I actually wanted to thank you for, helping people create employee-centric organizations. That is very important these days, where that is lacking, mainly in the IT industry. But you're more to do with food industry, hotelier, right?
Yeah, food, retail, but I will say this, that leadership is universal. right? And the key being a good leader is being a good leader everywhere, in your personal life, in your professional life. And I talked to, part of the reason I created the leadership blueprint, you know I created this is because the more I spoke with my son, and he's an entrepreneur himself, he does eBay business, he's only 15 years old. The more I spoke with him, I just felt that our up and coming generations, they are not viewing leadership the way it should be viewed. There's a bunch of philosophy without any real action, right? Well, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. Well, nobody's really saying how to do it.
How to do it.
It's a skill, right? A skill, it's not a philosophy, it's a skill. So I really felt like, there is a way that we can have a good impact, right? So I think, and I also think that, if you're a good leader, and I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday that, being kind is very important, in this whole concept of empowerment and this whole concept of, making people feel heard. I think you have to be kind. And, I've been very blessed to have really kind leaders that, showed kindness when I needed it, right? So I think that, that's one thing we didn't touch a lot on, but as we wrap this up, to really go back and think, right? If you're a leader, are you a kind leader, and what does that really mean, right? So I think that's very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aman. Rashmi, over to you.
Yes. Today's discussion has been awesome. Thank you, Algu. Thank you, Aman sir. Because I realize that being kind and being empathetic is at the core of leadership. And also, am I allowing that safe environment in which my team is saying, being allowing them to be vulnerable to such a point that they're expressing whatever they want to, may it be personal, may it be official, but they're coming up and they're saying, I have this challenge, and that confidence that comes in the team speaks a lot about the leader. So thank you so much. It was a very, very interesting discussion. It was real and it was practical. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have a quiz now. I'm just throwing this question at the audience. The person who answers first and the correct one, they can just chat, they can just send a message in the chat box. Here is the question. It's a simple question, but it's a deliberate one. What is an impending question in everyone's mind when a conversation ends? No. Yes. Dr. Vasanti no, is the person. Yes, Dr. Vasanti is our winner. Then it was Uma, whether they are heard, have they understood? Yes. So Dr. Vasanti is the person who answered first. So congratulations, she's our winner. And Arul will get in touch with you.
Congrats, Dr. Vasanti.
Thank you so much.
That's great. I think that's important. I always joke with my wife, with your wife is the only time you will say after a conversation, am I in trouble? All of the conversations should be whether I'm heard or not, right? So, or I feel heard, right? Or they understood me. So we joke about this all the time.
Aman, it was a very good session. Thank you so much. And I think husband-wife relationship is the, very tricky combination, I should say.
Well, I get to practice a lot of things there, so it helps.
Maybe,
that's a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, the culture in India maybe
Can't
has
take
to...
anything for granted there, though we end up taking everything for granted.
Hey, that's what I said. After every conversation, you just go, am I in trouble? Or did it go well? That's it. I think for that relationship, that's a good question to ask when the conversation is done. As a husband, that is.
You'll know the next day.
Yeah. Oh, no, you'll know it within a few minutes. You'll feel the impact next day, probably.
Yeah.
Not immediately.
No.
Not immediately. All experience.
My wife's great, and she really understands this concept because she's great. She's in terms of leadership, she's a great leader in general to the kids and how the kids are being brought up. And while that was a joke, because it's a different kind of relationship, and I'll keep saying this over and over again, that a good leader is a good leader, not just at work. A good leader is a good leader,
Always,
right? In every aspect of their life. So that's critical and important to
yeah, that's
understand.
critical. Truly, truly critical. Thank you. So we have any questions from the audience? We can take 3 questions.
Can I ask Aman a question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Good evening, Aman. It was a very good talk. And
Thank you.
sorry, I'm not able to come on the video. I am elsewhere. So what I would ask is, you being from US and India, we have different cultures.
Yeah.
So can you touch upon the culture point as to how this can be cultivated? Because I have collaborated with German professors, and it is a very, very different scene over there. They look into your eye and they talk. And they don't have any mobiles, no network, nothing is there. No gadgets are there in their hand when we have a meeting with them. But here it is very different. So do
Yeah.
you find a difference in US? Can you elaborate on that?
When
If
I
I
came,
come, or in a sense, if I come and meet an American professor there, what should be my takeaway?
well, put it this way, when I came to US, I can only relate to my experience, and throughout the experiences I've had, it was an adjustment, because different cultures have different norms that are accepted and that are not accepted. I will tell you, in the professional world, right? And I don't, in core of everything, I think everybody's trying to build relationships in business, and everybody's trying to understand each other or collaborate for a greater purpose, right? If you're doing business with the right person, you will figure out and you will understand this quickly. They want the best as you want the best for a certain goal, whatever goal you're trying to achieve, right? Now, not to forget that one of, I would say, one of very important qualities of a leader is being adaptable, right? Again, I'll go back to emotional intelligence, but it's to really be adaptable. And I think if you come to US and you come with a purpose or a goal or something you and this other person is trying to achieve together, and if you both are adaptable, you will not find it very hard. People genuinely want to do good in life. I've never met anybody yet that wakes up every morning and says, hey, I want to lose, right? So while it's a very hard question to answer, what difference would you make? Yes, there are a few things, like looking into the eyes. Here, people are more tend to do that. It's a sign of respect. What I understand is in India, it's quite different, right? Using the word, people try to use the word. I often tell them, my name is Aman or Aman, right? Like it's different in India. So there's certain differences, right? But I think if you're adaptable and you do some research, thank God we live in a world of technology, you do some research, but more importantly, you understand that person before interacting with them, I think you will not find it very hard to accomplish the goal, right? But if you're not adaptable and you come with one mindset and you think your mindset is the right mindset, how interaction should happen, there might be some challenges, that you'll have to face trying to understand and get to the goal. So it depends on you, So be adaptable, do some research, understand it, and I think you will not have any difficulty.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
that was one question and an interesting one. Anybody else would like to
Nirupama
ask a
has
question?
her hands up.
Yeah, Uma has Uma and Nirupama. Nirupama, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Aman. Thank you for the brief discussion highlighting on the effective communication and strategies when it comes to leadership. Here, I have a personal question following up on what you just covered some time ago. So when we talk about effective communication, when it is crucial in all aspects of life, including personal relationship, I would like to know, how would you ensure that you're being heard by the one who are close to you, such as your spouse or family members, sometimes children, growing up children or teenagers? So it's we hear them, and how at the same time when it comes to in other phase of life, sometimes things gets taken for granted. So how do we ensure that they hear us? So in vice versa. So any
Oh, so this, so we're
highlights?
flipping it. So you're saying, how do we make sure they hear us?
Yeah, how do we ensure that we are being truly heard, at least by the close ones? Because the close ones are the ones, with whom we expect, at least the spouse and children, at times close friends.
Right. Well, I would ask you this question then. Are you making them feel heard and valued? I think that's the first question to answer, right? Kids is a tricky one, and I struggle with that a lot. My wife is much more effective, dealing and understanding them, much more patient for sure. Yeah, I have a 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 4-year-old, so they're kind of all over the geography in terms of age, right? But it's very hard. It's very, very hard. If you actively practice this, hey, I want to hear this person, I want to make them feel good, that's a different story. But now, if you're practicing it, you're interacting with other people, and they are not practicing that, or they don't understand the concept, it's going to become very challenging. The best advice I could give you is, if you expect something from them, make sure you're delivering what they expect from you, right? If you are, then it becomes easier to get what you're looking for. When it comes to kids, spouse, personal relationships, there's times you'll fight, there's times there's anger, there's times there's ego. It happens all the time. Again, I would just say, try to understand whenever there's a problem. I was listening to this video where this particular gentleman was saying that when two people are yelling at each other in a single room, is because they are so far apart on what they feel is safe and what they feel is real, or what they feel is important to them. That's why if you look at spouse fighting or people yelling at each other in the same room, you're right next to each other, right? You don't need to do that. But before setting an expectation with somebody, ask them first. Even that could be a personal relationship, professional. Hey, what do you expect from me? It's a weird question to ask from your kids or your spouse, right? What do you expect from me on a day-to-day basis, right? I think that's a big help. If you can truly go to your spouse and say, hey, what do you expect from me, right? On a day-to-day basis, what makes you feel important? Same to kids, right? What makes you feel important? What do you want from me as a father, as a mother? Or that could be your in-laws, that could be your sister, your brother. Very weird question to ask. You don't know, the society or our education system doesn't teach us to do that. It's very effective to ask. I've had my fair share of problems in my personal life with people, with spouse, and I think that question has helped a lot.
Great,
I hope
wonderful.
that answers your question. It's a
Yeah.
tricky one to answer.
Thank you so much for this piece of advice. Thank you, Aman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Just a
Nirupama.
small
And
question tagging to that, Aman. Like when you said you ask upfront, like what do you expect from me? Do you think you will get in the sense, do they, like let's say it's kids, maybe they might not be able to express what they want from us. So
Mhm.
how do you handle that? Like, will we get the right answer or will we get the
What I have found out, we will almost never get the right answer. Okay. And it's funny, I said this is what we should do, and this is, we will almost never get the right answer, because we have to factor one thing in that: change. Every morning you get up, and every night you go to sleep, and the next morning you get up, you're not the same person. Some event, something has happened in your life that particular day that has shaped or reshaped you. It might be a very small event, it might be a video you watched, it might be an interaction you had. So to ask that question just once and just let it be, it's not very effective. It's an ongoing conversation, right? Because when I've met my spouse, 17 years ago, she's not the same person. I'm not the same person. And if you look at any relationship, it could be spouse, work, kids, if you are evaluating your relationship on yesterday's personality of the person, you are in for a wild ride, and it's not a good one, right? So always factor change. Your kids are growing. I mean, how would you go and ask a 9-year-old, hey, what do you expect from me? Right? You don't have to directly ask them that. You could have a conversation. Sometimes get a cup of ice cream, do something, go for a walk. I go for a walk with my kids all the time. And we just talk about life. But what you're really listening is, where do they stand today? I was telling this to my wife. My daughter just turned 9 and she's a gymnast. She does gymnastics and she's very busy with, she practices every day 4 to 5 hours. And I don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago, she's just a different person. Like, she now understands emotions. She can say, Dad, but I don't like this, but I don't like it this way. And it came to a shock. Like, wow, okay, I'm talking to an adult now. Like, when did this happen? And it clearly happened overnight. So that
It's
question
so
that I
very fast.
very fast, right? The question I asked her a year ago or evaluated a year ago, what does my kids expect from me? It's not the same today. So don't expect the right answer. Just
Yeah.
understand the purpose of asking that question is simply now they're at least aware that you want to do good with them,
The
right?
intention, they will
The
know. Yeah,
intentions is
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Uma?
Thank you, Aman. Yeah, Uma.
Hi, Aman, and it was a very in-depth discussion and a very meaningful insight shared. And my question is one of the discussions which we had today. Like you said, like we have to strike a balance between authentic and active listening and emotional intelligence. So, is there any tool or technique like how can we, how it can be done?
The best way to do that is after every interaction. What I do is, and I started doing it after every interaction, but over the years I've changed this, is after every interaction, if you're new and practicing, see what you could have done better, right?
And
Because yeah, ultimately it's funny, we are talking some very basic things here, but it's these basic things that will help us become good leaders. And it's usually people not talking basic things and going to this high level philosophies with their teams, and at the end of the day people get up from meetings and they're like, what is going on? I don't even get it. To keep it very simple, just after every interaction, see what you could have done better, what you could have said better. After this meeting, I'm going to take notes and see, could I have made a better impact? What did I miss? Right? The more you do that, the more you will get in tune with what really empathy is. Because what is empathy? It's putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and understanding where they're going from. Very easy to say, very hard to do. Right?
Right.
And if you take these 3 traits where you understand does it mean to be emotionally intelligent, you understand what does it mean to be authentic and help other people do that, and what is engaged and active listening, it's a skill. So the only tool you have in your toolbox to do the skill is practice, right? And part of practicing is sitting back and realizing, in this conversation, what could I have done better, right? And there's a lot of resources. You can go online. There's a lot of good mentors, stories you can learn from, but all the stories and the online courses, every you take, while they're good, nothing will beat your own perspective of what happened and how you can make it better.
Thank you so much for the insights. It was really
Thank you.
mind-blowing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Uma. Thank you, Aman. And thank you, Alagu.
Thank
It
you.
has been a lovely
Rashmi, there is a question in the chat box. I think Saurav
Okay.
Das has asked.
How culturally team leaders can communicate effectively for making them head from top-down hierarchy. How culturally team leaders can communicate effectively for making them head from top-down hierarchy.
I don't think maybe the person can speak up if it's okay. Just to
Mr.
Yes.
Das.
Saurav Das can ask this question. I'm pasting it again in the chat box.
Saurav, it's okay. Feel free to ask. There's never a wrong question. So I just want to make sure that the piece, when you say culturally, what does that really stand, right? If you take the word culturally out, how team leaders can communicate effectively for making them head from top-down hierarchy, what I'm understanding is, how can we make sure that leadership flows down correctly? And I mean, our whole discussion was around that topic, right? Like, how do you make sure that people all the way in the top are sending the right message, right? It's how you're communicating down. Let me give you one example. Maybe this will help. If you're working in an organization and maybe an individual makes a mistake, right? And you're leading an organization where you say, people are important to me. Leadership is important to me. Empowerment is important. We are a company that believes in leadership. We lead by empowerment. We want the best for our people. And then an individual makes an honest mistake and they are let go. What message are you sending the rest of the team, right? Rather than somebody saying, hey, what's going on? Why did you make this mistake? You've been working here for a few years. You've done great. Is there something going on? Can we work on something together? Is everything okay? I think that is one of the most effective way to, when somebody is not performing, how do you deal with that? That will determine what kind of organization you're leading, because your actions will always speak louder than word. We've heard this saying over and over and over again, but it's very critical and important when it comes to leadership. For leaders up top to send the right message down is in times of adversity, how do you act and react? I think that will determine. And I hope I answered that question.
Yes, unfortunately, Saurabh left the discussion, so we don't have anybody here to really know whether what he meant is. But I guess that's what he was asking, and you answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Senthil to summarize the discussion. Senthil, it's up to you now.
Miss Uma will do the summary today. Yes.
Yeah. Rashmi, what happened was, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Uma is going to summarize, and Uma is over to you, Uma.
Thank you
Okay,
so
before
much.
that, just one thing. I just wanted to thank Aman, because not only talking about being heard and being heard and then being empowered, you also truly demonstrated the true active listening and engagement just now, because Saura's question was about how culturally things work, but you wanted to understand his perspective on what culturally means according to him. When anyone could have just answered the question by reading the chat box, but you wanted to understand what he wanted to mean by that, and then you wanted to speak to him and then answer the question properly so that he's being heard in the right way. So I think this is a true demonstration that we can see here.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Important, right? It doesn't matter how, I used to be in sales before. It doesn't matter how great your product you're selling. If you talk about that aspect, if the other person doesn't value or doesn't understand the value of it, it's not a great product, right? It depends on the person and individual.
I hope Saurav gets to see the recording and gets your answer too.
He can get it.
And please feel free to just email me or give him my number. That's okay. He can just call me and I'll be happy to answer that for him, or answer what I think, what it means.
Over to you, Uma.
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi, and thank you, Aman sir, for the wonderful discussion with Alagu Lakshmanan. So let me summarize the discussion in a nutshell. Initially, the discussion was on empowerment and how leaders can support employees and the working culture to be improved. An organization is a group of leaders, and the people should feel empowered that they are heard. Important traits of leaders are emotional intelligence, understand the people we are working with, and understand what makes them feel heard. And Aman also shared an example of being heard and how he helped a person with communication skill. And he further said that communication skills are the key. A good leader sees the potential in people more than they see in themselves. Trust should be there between the employees and the leader. Trust is the core. It has to be built among people. Important to build balance, authentic, active listening, and emotional intelligence. So we have to build balance between all the three, and technology is the key to work together. If there is no balance between the above mentioned three things, then technology will be a biggest disaster. So it is not what we say, but how we say is more important. Build an environment where everyone feels safe, heard, and empowered with doing these basics. The technology will be of very useful, and without this, it won't work the great. Make people understand that they can be themselves, but still can achieve their goals. Be authentic and teach the team how to do that. Being kind is the most important trait in leadership. Hope I have summarized to the most of the points. And over to you, Sendil sir, if I have missed any of the points.
Thank you, Uma. Thank you, Uma. And sorry, Aman. Actually, today nature has challenged me because of some heavy rain. I commute from my office, so there was heavy traffic jam and there was a big waterlogging. So I reached here only by 7:50. So by the time when I reached 7:50, I was in the middle of fifth question. So with the fifth question point, whatever Uma has summarized, she has neatly mentioned all the points. She has covered all the points for the question number 5.
Yeah, no,
So
great. Uma. I mean, I would say, kindness is, you're right, it's the most important. It's one of the most important, but
yeah,
it's a critical one. You cannot be not a kind leader and be a good leader. So, but thank you.
yeah. And one more point, what you were mentioning is voice should be valued because this is a place where it built trust in adapting to technology. So this groundwork need to be done before adapting to technology. So this was one point what you mentioned apart from what
Yeah,
you said. Yeah.
yeah. Before I would add, before adopting to technology, to use it as a medium to empower
Yeah.
people, you have to do the groundwork
Yeah.
first.
Another thing was about the self-educating on the body language and the cadence of tone. How we can sensitize a person from his tone of his modulation, voice modulation, the cadence of tone. So that also brings good cueing about the person's emotion feeling.
Yeah, yeah. The very important. It's like you asking, "Hey, how was
Yeah,
this?" And I say, I had a great time. That doesn't sound like I had a great time.
exactly. There's no energy.
Yeah, if you're excited to come to work and everything is good, you're going to, hey, this is great. I'm feeling great. You don't have to be so animated, but you, as a leader, you have to understand sometimes, or most of the time, what people say, it's not really what they're feeling, right? You have to get to the bottom of that.
So what, in a nutshell, I can understand here is power is not given but taken as a sign of empowerment in itself. So that's what I could able to
Yeah,
get as a
it's
takeaway
them
message.
it's your team understanding you work for them
Yeah.
because it's to develop them.
So it's been a lovely evening and it's a lovely discussion. I mean, it's been very interactive. Everybody really spoke up. So thank you, Aman, for creating this environment for us today. And Alagu man, thank you so much. Senthil, Uma, Arul, everybody who worked at the back end. So, and everybody who participated, everybody who listened actively, I should say. So thank you so much. We have Uma giving the vote of thanks. Over to you, Uma.
Thank you, Rashmi, for this vote of thanks opportunity. So my best lines, though every question had its own importance, my best takeaway from this is being kind is the most important trait in leadership because that touched me with great impact and I would like to inculcate more kindness in my future interactions with everyone. So this is one of the best takeaway I can say from today's conversation. Before me sharing about the next week episode, let me quickly share again the purpose of the community. For the visitors who are attending for the first time, Leaders Connect 360 is a hybrid model leadership community where every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m., we invite a top management leader from a reputed corporate company to suggest some solutions for our real-time leadership challenges, like the experience we had today from our guest, Mr. Aman Sahota. Kindly follow our social media platforms to get updated. It's very simple to join our social media community. Do click the below social media links, which was shown in our chat box. And let me now take the opportunity to announce our next week guest, Mr. Inwin E. Joel, Human Resource People Development. Episode will be on navigation leadership challenges with ISO HR management. Join us on 12th June 2024, Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. on Zoom Live. Registration link for the episode will be shared through social media platforms only. It gives me an immense pleasure to thank our guest of honor today, Mr. Aman Sahota, and panel discussion leader, Ms. Alagu Lakshmanan, for spending your valuable time in sharing their experience and insights. Guest and I thank from both of them from bottom of my heart, and I asked Arul to play the thanks video. Over to you, Arul.
Aman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
We
you.
have a small networking round. You can stay with us if time permits.
Sure. I mean, if you guys would like, I'll be happy to stay.
Yes. We'll introduce one by one everybody. So Arul is